I wanted to introduce a shame-proof parenting training because we don't talk about shame very much except on a superficial level. And that is partly because of the hidden nature of shame. It doesn't like to be exposed because that might risk more humiliation and shame, which would feel too painful. So we avoid confronting it. And also because of the hidden nature means that it's often acting out in disguise. So we're not always aware that it's a shame response that we are experiencing, whether that's our own or our child's. But I think it's really important for us to bring shame out of the shadows, so long as we're doing it in a safe and compassionate way, because shame is often the driving force behind some of our children's most disruptive and distressing and change-resistant behaviours, and it can interfere with attachment. And so if we don't understand that it's shame that is behind it, we can really get our interventions wrong and worsen the situation rather than repair it. And it's also important to explore because shame has a really contagious nature. So if we're not paying attention to it, the whole caregiving system can get swept up in its vortex, and that can lead to empathy deficits and compassion fatigue. Now, to become a shame-resilient family means that we have to create an enormous amount of safety within our relationships, but that can be easier said than done, even if we truly understand what it means and how to do it. And there's a few different reasons for that. Firstly, is that shame is so endemic in our society and in the way that we raise and educate and communicate with our children and with ourselves. So, we're often quite unaware of how we are contributing to the shame mix and, how we're playing our part. And secondly, some of us have children who come into our homes with behaviours that are fairly disgusting and revolting, and they're designed to be, because they're designed to keep us away from being in relationship, which is the thing that our children fear the most. But that means that we have a daily diet of swearing and hitting and biting and spit down our t-shirts and in our hair and poo smeared up the wall. And those behaviours really don't invite a kind of loving, protective, supportive response from us. And that's nobody's fault. It's just that's what our nervous systems are designed to do. They're designed to be repelled and revolted and move away from that kind of behaviour rather than move towards them. But it does mean that we might already be carrying around quite a lot of guilt and shame, because we may be feeling that, maybe we don't like this child, let alone love them very much. Or maybe we are an inadequate parent because no matter what we do or how hard we try, we don't seem to be making any difference to this child. Or maybe we're just so exhausted, we don't want to be in this job anymore. But when we start going down that kind of pathway of thinking, it can lead to shame pretty quickly, because we start to believe that there's maybe, something wrong with us at a core level, because mums and dads are not supposed to feel that way. And thirdly, compounding all of that is the problem that children from trauma backgrounds tend to be pretty resistant to the kinds of things that we are told to do to help them be shame resilient. So for example, using praising and validating language, because that can actually be quite triggering to our children. It can remind them of past associations of betrayal and threat. So it isn't just a case of pouring kindness and praise over our children. It doesn't work that way. So what do we do? And that is why I wanted to introduce the training, because I think it's really important and helpful if we understand how shame lives in our body, in our beliefs, and in our behaviours. And especially understand developmental shame and how that is created and carries on into adulthood. It's useful to learn about shame dynamics and especially the shame rage dynamic, and how that interferes with relationships. And we want to have a look at what being a shame resilient family really looks like, and learn the tools that help us to move towards shame resiliency and shame healing.